Chapter 0, The Strain. April 2025. Valenzuela City, Philippines. The heavy double doors of the National Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima swung shut, but they couldn't seal out the pervasive reality of the new normal. The humidity clung to everyone, thick and suffocating, a physical manifestation of the anxiety gripping the archipelago. This wasn't the post-pandemic recovery promised in 2023. This was the era of the Bathala-Strain. The world had mostly returned to its monotonous rhythms. The economy hummed. Traffic on MacArthur Highway outside was predictably chaotic. The news cycle was dominated by mundane political bickering. But the Philippines had been singled out by fate, or perhaps by something more sinister, and the global community had reacted with swift, brutal quarantine measures that felt less like protection and more like containment. Outside, the air was thick with the scent of ozone and disinfectant, a combination that had become the defining smell of the decade. Salabas, akala mo normal lang ang lahat. Outside, you'd think everything was just normal, but look closely at any intersection. The traditional police checkpoints had been replaced by biometric scrutiny pylons, tall, sterile towers armed with Tego's ballot, skin-piercing, sensors that didn't just scan for high temperatures, but for gravitational shifts, sudden increases in local bioenergy, and anomalies in a citizen's basic biosignature. The satellites overhead were locked in, foreign eyes tracking every move within the nation. They were looking for the flicker, the spark, the moment physics broke. They were looking for the strain. The 5 factors of the curse, the Bathala-Strain, wasn't a mutation you could simply catch like a cold. It was a chaotic lottery with 5 non-negotiable requirements. 5 locks that had to be picked in sequence to unleash the anomaly coiled in a Filipino's DNA. Scientists globally were baffled, or perhaps they pretended to be, because the requirements defied every rule of epidemiology. The Philippine government called it the crisis, but in the secretive underground forums, it had its own name, Ang Sumpa, the curse. First, the generational anchor. You had to have been born between 1981 and 2012. The elders and the young children were spared. The weight of evolution fell squarely on the shoulders of millennials and Gen Z, the very generations who had come of age in a world already dissolving into uncertainty. It was a demographic trap, selecting the hands meant to build the future and turning them into weapons. Second, the first strike. A documented COVID-19 infection back in the early 2020s, a specific strain where you completely lost your sense of taste. Nawalan ka ang panlasa at pangamoy. You lost your sense of taste and smell. That wasn't just a symptom. That was the virus actively remapping the neural pathways, turning the olfactory bulb into a primary receiver and the brainstem into a biological tuning fork. It was the key slipping into the first lock. Third, the silent seconds. A second COVID-19 infection that passed completely without notice. You thought you were fine, no cough, no fever, not even a headache. But that silent infection had been the main event, utilizing the newly remapped neural pathways to access and manipulate the dormant regions of the genome. While you were going about your day, your very biology was being rewritten. The second lock had been turned. Fourth, the hybrid primer. A requirement that was both nonsensical and terrifyingly specific. You had to have been vaccinated exactly twice, but with 2 different brands. Pfizer followed by Sinovac, Moderna paired with AstraZeneca. The specific chemical cocktail of the different vaccine platforms, clashing in the bloodstream, had been the necessary catalyst, the final biological handshake needed to complete the circuit. It wasn't about the vaccines themselves, but the chemical dissonance they created. The third and fourth locks clicked open together. Finally, the trigger. An internal spark that was entirely personal and fundamentally unexplained. For one person, it was the raw agony of physical trauma. For another, it was the absolute collapse of their mental fortitude under pressure. For a third, It was an explosive peak of joy or grief that shattered their carefully maintained facade. No one knew when it would happen, or why one specific event was the breaking point when hundreds before it hadn't been. But when the trigger happened, the final lock slammed open, and Ongagos, the flow, poured into the world. When these 5 conditions met, science ended. Physics became a suggestion. A Kislap, flicker, could control light. Kakaiba, rare, could communicate with machines. A Hayas, gem, could manipulate gravity itself. And a Sugong Dalase, pure harbinger, those anomalies among anomalies, could bend reality. The hunt is on. Bounty, betrayal, and the Bureau. The reaction was instantaneous and savage. The Philippine government, under unprecedented pressure from the Global Security Council, declared the Bathala-Strain an existential threat to humanity. In short order, they signed the Manila Accord. It was a single-page document that stripped every confirmed Bathala-Strain carrier of their human rights. They were no longer Filipinos, no longer citizens. They were officially biological hazards, anomalies, and entities. The hunt had begun. Ang Pag-ani, the harvest. Unmarked black vans with tinted windows patrolled Metro Manila, their roof-mounted sensors scanning relentlessly for bioenergy spikes. The national news wasn't reporting captures. It was reporting containments and neutralizations. The justification was always the same: world fairness. The international community argued that an individual who could level a city or manipulate time destroyed the very foundations of civilization. To save humanity, the subhumans had to be erased. The government weaponized the poverty and desperation of the masses. A verified lead leading to the containment of a confirmed strain carrier was worth $1 million. Halos 50 milyong piso, nearly 50 million pesos. This wasn't a hunt for supervillains. It was a hunt for your neighbor, your co-worker, your child. There was no underground resistance. The gifted were solitary, isolated, and terrified. If you met another person you suspected had the strain, you didn't seek alliance. You assumed they would betray you. Fear was the primary motivator. Trust was the first casualty. The official Bounty Registry app became the most popular download in the country. Social media feeds filled with cryptic videos of people catching suspicious glitches, a hand momentarily disappearing, a shadow moving independently, a faint glow in the eyes, all uploaded with hope for a life-changing payout. Location: Valenzuela City. The shrine. The afternoon light filtered through the ornate stained glass windows of the National Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima, casting vibrant patches of crimson, violet, and deep blue across the nave. Inside, the shrine was a cavern of cool marble and intricate wood carvings. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of beeswax candles, the sharp tang of frankincense, and the undeniable odor of unwashed sweat from hundreds of bodies. Despite the vastness of the space, the atmosphere felt suffocating. The pews were packed, but not with the usual Sunday crowd. Today, the majority were students from Fatima University. Clad in crisp white uniforms, they knelt on the cold floor, their faces marked by exhaustion from midterms and the quiet paranoia of their generation. Among them, the Marites, neighborhood gossips, were scattered like crows in a field of white lilies. The eyes of the Marites, they weren't just praying. They were watching. Their eyes were sharp, scanning for the smallest irregularity. A glow, a tremor, a distortion in the air. Sa mundong ito, ong isang maling kilos, isang sampong. Ikatumbasing 50 milyong piso. In this world, one wrong move, one episode, is worth 50 million pesos. They whispered among themselves. Short, quick, precise. Did you see that student in the third row? Too sweaty. And that girl nearby? Her hand was trembling. A flicker, maybe? Above them, the statue of Our Lady of Fatima watched. Carved from hardwood, her eyes were meant to reflect sorrow. But today, something felt different. Her gaze felt focused, piercing, as if she weren't looking over them, but through them, searching. The priest and the consecration. The priest was young, no older than his early 30s. Small in stature, but rigid in posture. Disciplined, intentional. He wore the purple vestments of Lent, the color of penance and preparation. His voice rose, calm but resonant, filling the vaulted arches of the shrine. Kunin ninyong laha ito at Canaan. Ito ang aking katawan na ihahandog para sa inyo. Take this, all of you, and eat. This is my body, which will be given up for you. The congregation knelt in unison. 1,000 knees struck marble. A dull, heavy sound. Then silence. Complete silence. The priest lifted the host. A small white wafer, held between steady fingers and gold. Light struck it, isolated it. The world faded, blurred. There was only the host. The shift, it wasn't a miracle. Not yet, but something changed. The air tightened, pressure dropped, ears popped. The candle flames didn't flicker. They froze. Time felt suspended. The silence deepened. From sacred to suffocating. Every eye in the shrine fixed on the host. The Marites, the students, even the statue. The entire space seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first Sampang episode. The moment that would break the silence. The moment that would shatter the illusion of normal. The young priest stood still, hand steady, the host raised, as if the entire world was watching. The city, the nation, perhaps even a god, waiting for the anomaly to begin.